This is going to be a brief overview of how I do the mixes for Harvest. I do all of my mix activities in Pro Tools, and to get the song to the point that we're going to be looking at today takes anywhere between 6 to 8 hours, not including the time it takes to record the tracks that we do record live. I'm going to break this out and go through this quite quickly. The first part of this will be just a very quick walkthrough of the template that I use to mix. The second is going to be the tuning and editing of vocals, as that's a very key part of what I do with these mixes. And then the final part is just how I actually make the mix happen. So that's the roadmap, and we should be able to get through it, hopefully within 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max. The template is a similar one that I use for every song that I do for Harvest, and I've done roughly 150 of them now, so I'm starting to get well versed in how to do these. I wish I could make them happen faster, but there's a couple of reasons why that doesn't take place. The template is organized quite simply. There's the first 7 tracks that you see here, percussion, bass, acoustics, electrics, piano, keys, and background vocals. Those are VCAs. Those basically allow me to take what could be a very complex session, because in some cases I deal with songs where there might be 30, 40, or 50 discrete tracks, and it's very difficult to try to individually mix them all, so I group them with these VCAs. And because we have no drums for this particular song, there would usually be, a drum VCA. And sometimes if I have other instruments where I don't know what to do with them, I have another VCA called Other. But basically the template has 9 VCAs. This one is just using 7. I keep the vocalists right at the top because that's the most important part of the song, and I want to make sure I do a lot of work with them. And then below that are folders that just are another organizational element. So the loop and percussion elements, I program those using a drum synthesizer, so that's under the percussion folder. The bass is from Multitracks. The acoustic guitars, the first acoustic guitar was recorded live, but couldn't use it, so we're not going to include that in the mix. And these other 2 acoustic guitars came from Multitracks. The electric guitar, and this is usually true for pretty much every song that we're doing at Harvest right now. If there's not a guitar player that we bring in for the particular recording session, I add the electric guitar parts after the fact. Often 6 to 7 electric guitar parts. I got off easy on this song. There's only 1. The piano was recorded live. The keys were from Multitracks. Background vocals, I sometimes use them. I sometimes don't. They're in on this song, but I'm not sure that I'm going to use them. The rest of the template, I have my mix bus, so this is how I get the tracks combined and outputted to the final 2-track stereo. And on that mix bus processing, I have compression, I have saturation, I have some EQ, I have a limiter. I'm going to just put this into bypass for now, but I have a tool that allows me to really make sure the mix is going to work well, translate well. And then underneath that, I have all of these effects, reverbs, plates, delays. So that's the template, and that's once I've got all the source tracks, I bring them in here. And usually my very first step after the prep work is done is I spend time editing vocals. And you can see on this vocal track here that there are a lot of cuts in that vocal track. And the reason why there are a lot of cuts is because each and every single cut that you see here was hand-tuned by yours truly. And by that I mean I go in, I get rid of all of the junk around the words that the singer is singing, so that we don't hear the sort of extraneous noises, which could be from the rest of the band, could be, the singer was clearing their throat before they started, whatever. I get rid of those annoying sounds, and there's a reason why I have to do that. But generally what I do is I start by cleaning the track, separating all of the phrases so that I've got clean track to work with. And then I literally go in and I hand tune every single phrase. And it goes like this. I bring my auto tune up. And once auto tune is in there, it's nice that they have an automatic mode, but it doesn't work very well. So I give it the range, which in this case is a tenor. I give it the key. We're in the key of A, and the scale is a major scale. And I go into graphical mode, and I tell it that I want to track the pitch. I audition
You
just
finish
that phrase.
what you begin. You finish what.
And then I make curves, I import the autocorrection, I make notes. And then I often will have to, grab individual notes, and move them either up or down if that's necessary, or in some cases, if the singer is too far off, I have to, draw a line and bring it, into pitch. And when I do that, I render it and then I move on. And as you might imagine, that's pretty tedious work, and it takes a ton of time. If you look at this vocal track, you can see on a roughly 4 minutes of singing, there's a lot of cuts and a lot of auto-tuning that takes place. The other thing that I do is I bring the clips so that they are relatively close in level. So you can see -9, -1.8, or in this case, +15. And that's because most singers don't have great mic technique. And so in a commercial recording, you have to try to bring the vocals as level as you can. So I do that clip gaining. You see these little fades here and here, and actually they're kind of all over the place if you look at the different sections. I'm basically taking hard plosive sounds, B's and W's and P's and T's, and I am reducing their amplitude so that they don't jump out in the track. And in terms of processing for vocals, I do subtractive EQ. That's always first in my vocal chain, and that just gets rid of some of the junk in the vocal. I have sibilance control, a de-esser, and I use different de-essing tools depending on the song and how the singer sings with their S's. And then I have 2 levels of compression. So I have, what is an 1176 style of compression and an LA2A style of compression on the tracks. And then, I guess supper's almost here. And then I have EQ for the voice and saturation. So that's kind of how I deal with the vocal tracks. In terms of effects, I'm usually sending at least 2 reverbs, sometimes more. Sometimes I'll have a micro shift, which is a slight pitch harmonization for the vocal, and I'll have a delay. With the delay, I'm actually side chaining for the delay, and the way that works is that when the vocal goes to the delay track, which is down here, it hits the delay, and it's timed to the song, obviously. So in this case, the song is 72 beats per minute, and it's a quarter note delay. And the side chain feeds this compressor, which only releases the delay at the end of a phrase. So if somebody is singing Promise Maker, which is how this song starts, Promise Maker, instead of hearing Promise, Promise Maker, Maker, we'll hear Promise Maker, Ker. That's the technique, and that's how it's accomplished through this technique of side chaining. Feed a channel over, let the compressor be driven by the side chain, and the delays come out nice and neat. So that gives us, tuned vocals, and you can see Joel tuned, Anna tuned. It can take me, 3, 4, 5 hours to tune a couple of vocals per song. And once they're tuned, they sound great. The artists don't hear the original, and I don't want them to hear the original, but they usually sound really really good once I've finished the tuning. The rest of the tracks, I generally don't have to do a lot with them. They are usually, if they're live performances, they're usually performed well. Our musicians are very strong and they do a good job. And generally speaking, the tone of the instruments don't require that much work. keys and guitars, I'll do a little bit. Might be a bit of compression, a little bit of EQ, but I don't need typically to do a lot with them. And then I'm ready to do the third phase. So we've talked about the session prep and templates. We've talked about vocal tuning and editing. And so the last thing, obviously, is to actually do a mix. And that, for me, is at a high level a 3-step process. The first step of that process is to create a static mix. And that is, I just have the faders kind of at a level where I think everything is going to sound good. And then I just give that a listen. So we'll give it a quick listen here. So that sounds pretty good to my ear. And I do this static mix. And once I've got the instruments in the right spot and the vocals kind of where they need to be, I'll do the next stage, which is doing my dynamic mix, which includes automating the mix. And what that means is that I have to constantly ride the vocals so that they stay the center of attention through the song. And of course, the band is building energy. So as the band builds energy and gets bigger, the vocals have to come up. And when the band goes down, well, the vocals have to come down. But I also try to create a bit of movement in the song by having certain instruments come into focus and certain instruments go out of focus. And so I usually do that sequencing, that automation run, as the sort of second major step. And then once I've done that, I do something that is sort of the inside secret of building good mixes, and that is I check it to a reference. Now, in this case, for worship music, it's very convenient because we, generally speaking, have all of our songs are being taken from the original. So I can quickly pull them in here, the original recording, and then compare what I've done with the original. And let's do that right now. So now they're in 2 different keys for this particular song. The song that we recorded in the key of A, and the song as it was originally recorded was recorded in the key of B. So in this case, I'm going to listen to my version, which is A, and the commercial version, which is B, and that allows me to check if I'm in the ballpark. So let's give that a quick listen, shall we?
Promise keeper, you finish what you begin.
Our provision through the desert,
you see it through till the end. You see it through till the end. Let's sing the Lord our God. Come on. Lord our God is ever faithful.
So you get the idea. That allows me to validate the quality of the mix before I ship it out and deliver it. Because I know if I've got it sounding that close to the original, that it's going to translate well. And that's really the key to a good mix, is confirming that what you've produced is going to sound reasonably good on tablets and smartphones and people's home theater or TV sets or whatever it is they listen to, that it's going to sound very similar to what the original was. And since those folks tend to use really good mixers, I'm usually, there are times where I'll deviate from what the cover has done for a couple of reasons, but for the most part, I'm checking to make sure that I'm close, that my bass is in the right spot, that the highs are in the right spot, that the vocals are riding well, etc. So there it is. That's takes me anywhere between a day to a day and a half per song to do. To professional standard. I mean, obviously, if we're doing this stuff live, it's not going to be as good as what I can do in a studio environment, but I thought that might be of interest to you. So there you go. Thanks for watching.